The world has long assumed that Africa would remain the resource basket for global powers, supplying oil, gold, lithium, and uranium to fuel Western industries. But now, that assumption is collapsing. 10 African nations have just slammed the door on raw exports, and global markets are reeling. This is shock diplomacy, economic sovereignty in action, and it's only just begun. For centuries, Africa's riches have been extracted and exported, raw and cheap, processed elsewhere and sold back at huge markups. Oil from Nigeria, gold from Burkina Faso, lithium from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Africa produced the wealth but rarely reaped the rewards. That cycle is over. Today, 10 African nations, including Nigeria, Ghana, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Zambia, Namibia, Tanzania, DRC, Mali, and Mozambique, have enacted tight export bans and regulations on raw materials. Instead, they're insisting on domestic processing and value creation. What does it look like when Africa stops sending crude oil or unrefined lithium abroad? For Western economies, it's a shockwave. Factories that once thrived on African raw materials face delays, rising costs, and critical resource shortages. European automakers rely on lithium for batteries. U.S. chip makers need rare earth minerals. Without Africa's raw supply, global industry grinds to a halt. Meanwhile, African countries are refusing to be silent cogs in their own exploitation. They're building refineries, forging mineral processing plants, and rewriting global trade rules, all while greedily keeping more value in their own economies. A Ghanaian gold miner who watched her family's land hand over unprocessed gold to foreigners and got back nothing but dust. Now, thanks to new regulations, she works in a local refinery, earning twice the wage, training other women, supporting her community. Or David from Botswana, once a laborer, now factory supervisor, producing polished diamonds that fetch premium prices on world markets. These are not stories of charity. These are real stories of dignity regained. Here are the 10 trailblazers leading the charge. Nigeria banned crude oil exports, launched 3 major refineries. Ghana requires all gold to be processed in country, created thousands of jobs. Botswana expanded diamond polishing capacity, now exporting polished goods. Burkina Faso strengthened local gold refining after Traore's takeover. Zambia and Namibia halting raw or exports, building local smelting plants. Tanzania restricting raw gemstones, pushing domestic lapidary workshops. DRC, Mali, Mozambique introducing tariffs, bans, or processing laws for copper, lithium, uranium. That's 10 nations, covering critical resources for the global economy, all choosing to retain wealth locally. The immediate impact is dramatic. Oil prices climbed 14% last week. Lithium futures surged 23% as Africa's supply was suddenly restricted. Diamond stocks in Antwerp lost billions in value overnight. Western manufacturers are scrambling. Billion-dollar deals are in jeopardy. Analysts are warning of a stagflation loop. Yet, while global investors panic, Africans are smiling. Because Africa isn't playing defense. It's going on offense. Instead of exporting iron ore, Nigerians are building steel plants. Ghanaians are exporting jewelry instead of bars. Tanzanians are cutting gemstones domestically. These moves aren't just economic, they're ideological. They say plainly, Africa defines its future. Not Western CEOs. Not foreign governments. Africa. Some skeptics say Africa is playing with fire, risking foreign investment. But here's the truth. Investment flows aren't disappearing. They're changing shape. Foreign firms willing to partner on African-owned processing lines, greenfield refineries, and tech training centers are still invited. But they must come on Africa's terms, partners, not exploiters. That's the economy of dignity. We go deeper, exploring how African nations are building this infrastructure from scratch, fighting international pressure, and forging unexpected alliances. We'll show how Nigeria's mega-refinery, Ghana's gold processing revolution, and Botswana's diamond renaissance came to life. If you're watching this video till now, you already know this story matters. Stay with us. Subscribe. Because Africa's rise isn't just a trend. It's a movement. The ripple effects of Africa's export bans have been nothing short of seismic. In European capitals and Washington, D.C., the sudden realization that the continent is no longer passive is forcing emergency meetings, policy rewrites, and a scramble for alternatives. Industries dependent on African cobalt, uranium, and rare earths are already feeling the pinch. Auto manufacturers in Germany, tech giants in Silicon Valley, and defense contractors across the West are witnessing costs skyrocket and timelines stall. Africa is no longer waiting for validation, it's dictating terms. This new policy isn't just about rejecting the old system, it's about building a new one. And it's working. Local industries are booming. New refineries, mineral processing plants, and lithium battery factories are being built from the ground up. Jobs are being created. Thousands of young Africans are finding employment in sectors that were previously outsourced. Currencies are stabilizing. By exporting finished goods, these nations are retaining more value and reducing reliance on foreign currency inflows. Countries like Zimbabwe, Namibia, Burkina Faso, and Mali are becoming pioneers of this economic transformation. They're forming trade alliances, offering shared logistics infrastructure, and negotiating as blocs, not as isolated, desperate exporters. This isn't just an economic story, it's historical. For decades, Africa's resources were used to build empires abroad, while its own people remained impoverished. This new wave of self-determination is a direct rebuke to that past. With leaders like Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goïta, and Emerson Mnangagwa spearheading nationalization and industrialization programs, a new narrative is being written. One that no longer centers around foreign aid, but African autonomy. The message is clear. We are no longer your raw material basket. Across the continent, citizens are rallying behind this bold new vision. Social media is ablaze with pride and hope. Movements advocating refine at home, Africa first, and value retention now are trending across platforms. More African nations are expected to join this movement in the coming months. Ghana is reviewing its bauxite export policy. And as this new system crystallizes, Africa is not just reclaiming its resources, it's reclaiming its future. If you're watching this from anywhere in Africa, know this, the change has already begun. If you're watching from outside, understand this. Africa is not rising. Africa has risen. Like this video if you believe in a sovereign, industrialized Africa. Subscribe for more powerful updates from the heart of the continent. Comment below. Which African country should be next to ban raw exports?
Welcome to African Spotlight 24, your premier source for news and current affairs from across the continent. We're glad you're here. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and turn on notification to stay up to date with the latest news and analysis. Your support helps us reach more people. Disclaimer: the content of this video is based on credible, publicly available information and is intended for educational, analytical, and informational purposes only. African Spotlight 24 does not promote hate, violence, misinformation, or political unrest. Our goal is to deliver thoughtful insights, highlight local voices, and encourage informed conversations throughout Africa.
In a groundbreaking move that promises to reshape global trade policies and reframe power dynamics, 10 African nations have joined hands to implement a ban on the export of raw materials. This bold step aims to curb the uncontrolled outflow of valuable resources, boost local processing, and ultimately foster broader industrialization across the continent. But what exactly prompted this monumental decision, and what ripple effects can we anticipate in the global arena? Let's delve into the details. Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, please take the time to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell. Your support means everything to us. These 10 African countries have declared a halt to raw material exports, specifically targeting iron, copper, cobalt, gold, and silver. Notably, they are among the top exporters of these commodities globally. The common thread among these nations is their recognition that exporting raw materials has historically been detrimental to their economies. The hope is that by processing these materials locally, they will retain more of the value within their borders, stimulating job creation and economic growth. The initiative was launched in Kigali, Rwanda during the 26th meeting of the African Union's Specialized Technical Committee on Trade, Transport, Industry and Mining. This decision marks a pivotal moment for Africa, moving away from a history of exporting raw materials to becoming a significant player in the global value chain. At the heart of this initiative is a simple yet powerful concept. Why export raw materials when you can add value to them within your own country? By refining and processing these materials locally, these 10 African countries aim to tap into a wealth of economic benefits. Firstly, it will lead to the creation of numerous job opportunities. Refining gold, for example, requires a skilled workforce, thereby boosting employment rates and alleviating poverty. Secondly, this approach will diversify their economies, reducing dependence on volatile commodity prices. By diversifying, these nations aim to insulate themselves against external shocks, ensuring more stable and sustainable growth. Thirdly, it will stimulate technological advancement. The drive to refine and process materials locally will necessitate innovation, attracting foreign direct investment and fostering the growth of local expertise. Fourthly, it will enhance industrialization. With a focus on value addition, these countries are taking a leap towards becoming key players in various industries, shaping their positions in global trade. And finally, it will improve their balance of trade. By exporting processed materials, these nations will fetch higher prices, enhancing their export value and potentially reducing trade deficits. Now, let us take a closer look at the countries championing this initiative and their contributions to the global commodity market. The Democratic Republic of the Congo (DRC), a central player in this initiative, is the world's leading exporter of cobalt, a crucial component in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. In 2022, the DRC exported over 100,000 tons of cobalt, generating billions of dollars in revenue. However, despite being the largest exporter, the DRC processes only 20% of its cobalt, missing out on potential downstream benefits. The remaining 80% is exported to countries like China and South Korea, which refine the mineral and subsequently sell finished products back to the DRC, highlighting the need for value retention. Similarly, Ghana, the second largest gold exporter in Africa after South Africa, has also taken steps to limit raw gold exports. The country is rich in gold and has consistently exported the precious metal in its raw form. However, in a bid to reap greater rewards, Ghana has announced plans to restrict the export of raw gold, aiming to capitalize on its vast reserves and create more value locally. And finally, Senegal stands out as a major player in the phosphate rock industry, consistently ranking as one of the top 10 exporters worldwide. Phosphate rock, a key ingredient in fertilizers, plays a vital role in agriculture. In 2022 alone, Senegal exported over 2 million tons of the commodity, contributing significantly to its economy. However, Senegal processes just 10% of its phosphate rock, exporting the majority in its raw form. This initiative aligns with Senegal's vision to reduce its dependence on raw material exports and instead invest in processing industries to boost local value addition. These three countries represent a larger trend among African nations who are increasingly recognizing the need to move beyond raw material exports. The African Continental Free Trade Area (AFCFTA) further supports this vision, aiming to create a single market for goods and services across Africa. By harmonizing trade policies and reducing barriers, the AFCFTA facilitates the free movement of goods, promoting regional value chains and industrial development. However, this journey towards economic transformation isn't without its challenges. One significant concern revolves around the potential impact on African producers. Critics argue that restricting raw material exports might inadvertently harm local producers who rely on these exports for their livelihoods. Finding a balance between national interests and the welfare of individual producers will be crucial for the success of this initiative. Additionally, the initiative might face hurdles to insufficient infrastructure and expertise in processing these raw materials. Many of these countries lack the necessary facilities and skilled labor to refine the minerals and metals, which could hinder their progress if not addressed. Moreover, there are concerns that the proposed restrictions might escalate tensions with trading partners, particularly China, which is heavily reliant on African mineral resources. Managing these external relationships delicately will be essential to ensure minimal disruptions in global supply chains. Despite these challenges, the momentum towards value addition in Africa is undeniable. Furthermore, regional economic communities, RECs, such as the Common Market of Eastern and Southern Africa (COMESA) and the Economic Community of Central African States (ECCAS) are actively pursuing initiatives to promote local processing. COMESA, for example, has launched the COMESA Minerals Development Program, focusing on enhancing mineral value chains within its member states. As the African continent embraces this transformative journey, it's essential to recognize the potential ripple effects that extend far beyond its borders. The shift towards processing raw materials locally will undoubtedly impact global supply chains and commodity markets. Traditional suppliers from Africa will need to adapt to this change, exploring new sourcing options and diversifying their resource portfolios. Moreover, this move will likely reshape trade relations between Africa and its global partners. As African nations assert greater control over their resources, they may seek more strategic partnerships that prioritize mutual value creation. The European Union and the United States, for instance, might need to renegotiate trade deals to accommodate these changes, ensuring they align with Africa's evolving priorities. In conclusion, the decision by 10 African countries to ban raw exports is nothing short of a revolution, reshaping the continent's position in global trade. By prioritizing local processing and value addition, these nations are breaking away from the cycle of exporting raw materials and reaping only a fraction of the benefits. Instead, they are poised to capture a larger share of the value chain, stimulate their local economies, and drive industrialization. While challenges remain, the collective commitment of African nations to this initiative, coupled with supportive agreements like the AFCFTA, signals a promising future. As the continent moves towards a more refined and processed export landscape, it's essential for global partners to recognize this shift and adapt accordingly. The era of raw material dependence is coming to an end, and a new chapter of African empowerment and value creation is dawning. Thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts, suggestions, or any topic you would like to see us cover next. Don't forget to like this video and hit the notification bell. Stay tuned for our next insightful video. Thank you for being a part of our community. We look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please take the time to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell. Your support means everything to us.